Hello and welcome to a Heard It on a Podcast, our little corner of the Wild West. My name is Isaiah.
And my name is Ryley. Isaiah, it has been a long dream of mine on this podcast to start a new segment, Riley's Crunchy Corner. And each segment would be a different topic of crunchiness or granolaness or hippiness. I'm having a hard time finding a way to describe it exactly, but just Google all those words I just said if you don't know what being crunchy is. I strive towards crunchiness.
Oh,
And
to an extreme level?
I don't know about an extreme level, but I do dream about owning animals and a large plot of land and having self-reliant energy.
See, the funny thing is those things could be like the opposite of crunchy too, because it's like farmers. I feel like farmers are like the opposite of crunchy. Some farmers,
but we'll go on a little tangent here. I have been seeing some videos, maybe it's just because that's my algorithm, but farmers who are like realizing that fertilizer is not actually that beneficial in a lot of situations, and it's cheaper and it makes them more money on their livestock to just let like natural weeds and flora grow in their land and have their animals graze on that rather than having to pay for pesticides and crops. I'm kind of conflating agriculture and livestock. But anyway, today we're tackling the fashion industry. You've probably heard of some problems that are associated with the manufacturing and selling of clothing and footwear, but I kind of want to highlight them. I think as a consumer, it's your responsibility to at least know about the things that you're buying. So this is just to help you know. Pollution. Okay, without looking at my laptop, I'm going to name a couple of industries, and I'd like you to rank them in order of how much pollution is the most, and then the second most, and so on. Okay, so we've got transportation, construction, fossil fuels, agriculture, and fashion.
Is fossil fuels like the production of fossil fuels?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to say agriculture, fashion, fossil fuels. What were the other two? Transportation
and construction.
Construction and transportation last.
Okay, that's not bad. The real answer is fossil fuels.
Oh, well.
And then agriculture, and then fashion, and then transportation and construction. But to me, one of those is an outlier, right? You need food.
Mm-hmm.
You need energy.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get around. I mean, arguably, you don't need that as much. You need to like build places to live and work and sell things.
Are you saying we don't need clothes?
I mean, you need
nudist
clothes.
Colony.
You need clothes, but I don't really think you need. I could probably get rid of 95% of my wardrobe, and still like keep my job and be warm and cool when I need to be.
Like survivable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, it just seems to me that industry stands out as like, why is it's so high in so many like things like pollution and water consumption and things that we'll get to in this episode, compared to something like all airplanes and ships throughout the whole year.
Right.
That's kind of crazy to me.
I'm curious if they take into account like transporting fashion goods as part of fashion.
Yeah, I don't know what category that falls into, but also like you create billions of gallons or barrels of oil to create synthetic clothes.
Right.
So I don't know which that falls under, if that's the burden. I would argue it should be the burden of the end user.
End product. Yeah.
End product.
Yeah.
So like the oil that goes into synthetic clothing and the trucks pollution that moves it from Bangladesh to Colorado is the responsibility of the end product.
Sure.
Anyway, about 10% of all greenhouse gas emissions in the whole world produced by anything are directly related to fashion. Again, maybe that's like the production of the oil that then turns into, but it's still one of the top industries in the world by pollution. Water use is another huge consideration and a problem with a lot of clothing. I would like you to guess for one cotton t-shirt and one pair of jeans, how many liters of water do you think that takes?
Oh, we gotta be metric.
I know, I'm sorry, liters. There's 4 liters,
3.78,
3 point something liters in a gallon. So if you have a gallon guess, I'll do some math for you.
Okay. I'm gonna say for a t-shirt 60 gallons.
Okay.
And for a pair of jeans 200 gallons.
Okay. I'm not going to do the math. I lied. You can do the math if you want.
We'll put it here.
A pair of jeans and a t-shirt combined, I don't have the individual ones, but I'm sure that the jeans are most of it.
Yeah.
Is 20,000 liters of water.
I was way under.
Which is like at least 5,000 gallons of water. It's a crazy amount. Mostly because those are things made from cotton, and more than 60% of clothing in the world is made from cotton. Cotton is a very water inefficient plant. And then there's also a lot of water that's used in the manufacturing process. I don't know exactly how, but I do know that like things that are dyed use a lot of water and also potentially create a lot of pollution depending on how they're dyed and where the dye goes. But we're focusing on water for right now. Another guess that I'd like you to make: how many days could one person drink the like recommended amount of water equal to one t-shirt? Like how much water does one t-shirt equal in days of water drunk?
Okay. I gotta do what? This is some serious math here.
Don't try to do the math. Like I said, the jeans were probably 2/3 or more of the water use in that previous example. I'm kind of just trying to make a point.
I'm gonna guess like 2,000 days.
Okay. It's 900 days.
Oh.
But if I think about how many t-shirts I have probably 30 t-shirts at least. And so that's 27,000 days of water that are just in one drawer of my closet. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Lot of water is used to create clothes. And arguably on a more it shouldn't be controversial. It is controversial though because people like their clothes and they don't like to think about where they come from. But someone has to make the clothes. So I'm reading just straight from an article from George Washington University right now. The fast fashion industry employs about 75 million factory workers throughout the world. And of those workers, it's estimated that less than 2% of them make a livable wage in their respective country. So even if the minimum wage in Bangladesh or the livable wage in Bangladesh is $2 a day, it's still likely that they make less than that. And most of them are living at or below the poverty line. The European Parliament has described the conditions of factory workers in some parts of Asia as slave labor. Most of them work at least 12, if not 16 hours a day, every day of the week. And child labor is used in some countries. There's different laws. I'm not going to get into exactly which countries are the most controversial because it has changed over the last couple of decades and it continues to change. But really, most of the times when it changes in a country that's on its way to developing but not fully developed yet, those changes only come from first world consumers saying, I don't want to buy clothes made by someone who's paid less than a livable wage, for example. So you've heard the saying that like you vote with your dollars or you make decisions with your dollars. In this case, I would argue that you make the best decisions with your dollars in how you either do or don't spend money on clothes. So all of this leads back to how do you get the clothes that you actually wear? Because we've established we need at least a couple of shirts and pants and a jacket or two,
yes,
and some shoes. You probably will still need to buy shoes at least until you take a cobbling class.
Yeah, I don't think you could ever make like running shoes by yourself unless you have like a plastic press, which seems you could 3D print it maybe.
Yeah. Arguably you don't need running shoes, but that's a whole other crunchy conversation. My thesis then is that it is the most ethical way to pursue fashion if you make your own clothes. If your goal is not to
Okay.
pursue fashion, maybe you don't need to make your own clothes. There are some other techniques that I'll get to in a second. But I think that it is the responsibility of someone who likes fashion or thinks of themselves as fashionable to at least consider what it would be like to explore making your own clothes. Does that seem reasonable to you?
I think personally, I don't like pursue fashion as a hobby, but I like to like think about what I wear and look nice and coordinate outfits and stuff like that. I
Mm-hmm.
honestly wouldn't know where to begin with creating my own clothes. I know you need like a template or something. It's called something else, maybe.
Uh,
I don't know.
I forget
And
what they're
then you have
called,
to
but yeah.
sew it,
Yeah.
and then somehow that becomes a shirt.
So we got a sewing machine for our wedding because we both, my wife and I, both really want to learn to do this.
Uh-huh.
I have a dream of making this like amazing costume, like Halloween costume for my kids in the future. But you got to start somewhere. And so the only thing that I've really sewed is like I've made a couple of tote bags because it's just two flat pieces of
Right.
fabric with a seam on three sides. That's pretty easy, although it's still kind of hard to use a sewing machine. I'm not going to lie. And I maybe thought about making socks, but I hate when there's seams in the socks, so I would want to get better at that.
How are socks even made?
I don't know. I think they're just like so many things just like
Like
puffed off of your foot when you did that. Ugh.
It's your carpet, man.
um, I don't know how socks are made. They're probably just like pressed with, I imagine like Flintlock would spray on shoes, but like socks, and then they can be taken off. Anyway, I understand that making clothes is not the most ideal option for a lot of people. By the way, if you do make your own clothes, I think you should still use like reused fabrics or fabrics that were in like the vintage store in the like back section of like these are the prints that no one wanted. Make your shirt out of it. Or you can go to like Hobby Lobby and get I think they're called bolts of
Uh-huh.
fabric for cheaper than a single shirt.
Right.
So
See, you could just go and get a bolt of fabric and then like saran wrap yourself every day, and there's your clothes. You don't have to spend labor.
yeah, that's probably ultimately more work.
You think?
If you had to like wrap your body in fabric like a toga every day rather than just pull on a t-shirt,
I guess we have to do the math on that some other time.
we'll do that on another episode,
No.
a shirtless episode.
Oh.
So there's a lot of considerations when thinking about where you get your clothes. I'm not even telling you that everything that I've said in this episode is completely factual. I did find good sources, but do your own research. Like if this is something that you feel depressed by or angry at me for or interested in, I would recommend that you go out and do your own research and find your own sources. I know everyone has their own sources that they trust, but this is just to kind of like spark some conversation and some thought. That said, if you don't want to become a seamstress or a seamster, a seamer, then there's some other options. You can buy secondhand clothing, arguably more sustainable. You could buy less clothing, just don't buy as much. I read somewhere in this research that there used to be just the 4 seasons and there was like one clothing line with each season. And so even the most fashionable people only change their wardrobe 4 times a year. And now fast fashion brands like H&M and Zara and others have a new fashion line literally almost every week. Like every week you can go
Oh.
in and find a new line of like, this is what's cool now. This is what you'd wear if you want to like blow up on TikTok or whatever. And like even like week to week, there's different fashion being pushed on you to buy. And like I would argue to at least be aware of that. Like don't just be a slave to buy whatever H&M tells you is cool.
Yeah. I think I've like updated my wardrobe once.
I would argue that you have a pretty sustainable wardrobe. You don't have a lot of extemporaneous clothing, or if you do, it's worn so infrequently that I've never even seen it.
It's like a dress, shirt, and slacks or something like that. But I don't know. I usually only buy new clothes when something else wears out. Like if I rip through jeans, I'll buy more jeans.
And I think that that's reasonable. Another thing to consider is a lot of those fast fashion brands can make it cheap and make it new every week because it's crappy clothing. Like it's low quality. A lot of thrift stores won't even take certain brands anymore, like Shein, because they're just so bad, poorly made. So when you do need to buy a new pair of jeans or a new pair of shoes or update your wardrobe, consider where it's being made, what it's being made out of, who is making it, and how long it's going to last. It's ultimately better for you as a consumer and the planet for all the reasons that we've talked about if the clothing that you buy lasts longer. Arguably, it's not as fashionable, but I would argue that fashion has gone too far. It's now a detriment.
I mean, I've seen some like catwalk stuff, and I feel like to like the far extreme reaches of fashion, it's not even really clothing anymore. It's almost more like contemporary art that just happens to be on somebody's body, you know?
Yeah,
so like
I don't know much about the like high fashion, like fashion week kind of clothing, but I imagine a lot of that is like custom made. There's only like 3 of those pieces and they were made by a very well-paid designer. It's when that kind of gets boiled down and then sent to Bangladesh to be made for 90 cents a day that it becomes a problem. Okay, this is becoming a little preachy and I only meant for it to be crunchy. So I'm going to just wrap it all up with, if you're interested in doing this and thinking a little bit more about your clothing options, I would recommend the app Good On You. It kind of compiles a bunch of different like ecological and environmental and like human statuses on labor of a bunch of countries, and just gives you a score of like this company is good in these areas and needs to improve here. This company is really great because that's their main focus. This one is terrible, stay away from it, stuff like that.
Sure.
If that's an interest of you. And do you have anything else that you would like to counter with or question or encourage? It's a lot of pressure.
I got granola.
For the crunchy corner.
For the crunchy corner. This will just stay right here.
Okay.
For next time.
We'll have it in every episode of Ryley's Crunchy Corner. Thank you for listening to I Heard It on a Podcast. We've got new episodes every Monday, wherever you find podcasts, including YouTube.
Yeah, and if you'd like to connect with us, we're on Instagram and Threads, and you can also email us if you want to chat with us at hello@ihearditonapodcast.com.